So where does anti-Semitism come from? I've got a few ideas for you, some of them quite interesting, I think. The first type of anti-Semitism is the left-wing variety. So I used to see that quite a lot at some of the schools and colleges that I worked at amongst the sort of left-wing teachers. And the origins of this can be traced all the way back to Karl Marx, who, although he was ethnically Jewish, was actually an atheist himself and was notoriously anti-Semitic. Yeah, he wrote an essay in 1843 called On the Jewish Question. And this quote comes from that essay, and as I say, it's written by Karl Marx. And Marx says as follows: "Let us consider the actual worldly Jew, not the Sabbath Jew, as Bauer does, but the everyday Jew. Let us not look for the secret of the Jew in his religion, but let us look for the secret of his religion in the real Jew. What is the secular basis of Judaism? Practical need, self-interest. What is the worldly religion of the Jew? Huckstering. What is his worldly god? Money." So what's Marx actually saying there? Well, he's basically characterising Jews as hucksters, and hucksters are people that sell things. You know, people that, and it's a quite a negative connotation. It's not just a regular entrepreneur. It's somebody who maybe forms a cartel or rips people off using inside knowledge. So it very much is definitely anti-Semitic from somebody himself who was ethnically Jewish. And as I say, I've seen this amongst the teaching profession. Many of them are left-wing. Like Karl Marx, they worship the government. That's their god. And what they want is bigger government. And what they hate above all else is free market capitalism. So they associate Jews with free market capitalism, and that's why they hate them. The other aspect to it as well is that Marxists see the world through the lens of this: of you're either an oppressor or you're oppressed. And what the state needs to do is to come in and redistribute income from those doing the oppressing to those that have been deemed to be oppressed. And I think, you know, what the average Marxist thinks is that the Jews are the oppressor. And yeah, it's obviously it's complete nonsense, but this explains left-wing anti-Semitism. You can also see it too, this oppressed versus oppressor, when they left-wingers start talking about Palestinians. You know, they never sort of think of this in terms of a two-way conflict. It's always the Jews who are doing bad things to the poor old little oppressed Palestinians. And yeah, this spills over into just naked, fairly obvious anti-Semitism. But probably the most important cause of anti-Semitism is Satan. So anti-Semitism, you could say, is a satanic deception. And I'm going to prove this now with a few Bible verses. So the first one is from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26. And it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, male and female created he them. So the message here is pretty clear. We're made in God's image. Who hates that? Satan. Satan is extremely envious of God, and he also hates God's creation, i.e. us. But it's not just that. It's also the fact that the Jews are God's chosen people. So I'm going to read out a few quotes. So the first one is from Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. And it says, "For thou art an holy people," so this is Jews, "unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So the inference here is pretty clear. The Jews are God's chosen people. Satan hates what God creates. He hates human beings, regular human beings, but obviously he has a special hatred reserved for the Jews, who are God's chosen people. And what Satan tries to do is deceive people into harming Jews. So I would say what Adolf Hitler did to the Jews was a product of demonic possession. Hitler was possessed by demons, and those demons urged Hitler on to murder 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. More evidence of the fact that the Jews are God's chosen people can be found in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, verse 21. And it says, "And say unto them, saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from amongst the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. And one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all of their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their God." So again, you can see why the Jews drive Satan insane. They are God's chosen people, like it or not. So the Bible's fairly clear on it. There's loads and loads of other quotes from the Bible that I could have given that back up this view, this truth, this belief that God chose the Jewish people. They're special to him, and that's just in the Bible. So if you do profess to be a Bible-believing Christian, you should have no truck whatsoever with these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that the Jews are behind everything that's bad that's ever happened in world history. I think there's some other sources of anti-Semitism. So, for example, there are some Christians that blame the Jews for the death of Jesus, which is really silly. Because it was basically a handful of Pharisees, the corrupt religious people of their day. It would be like blaming something that Justin Welby said or did on normal Christians. Then I guess you've got some people would talk about the other religion, that they're not liked, the Jews are not liked because they rejected their prophet. No, if you've actually looked in that book, there's some pretty openly anti-Semitic things said. Another source is just plain old jealousy and scapegoating, which is behind many forms of discrimination and sort of hatred. So that well-known far-right publication called The Week, at the last school that I worked at, they used to order that in for the sixth formers. That shows you just how extremist this publication was. They actually ran an article with the following title: IQ, Why Jewish People Are Smarter. And in this article they said that the average IQ of somebody who's Jewish is 115, which is well above average, and that Jews have a genetic superiority. So there's some people, they rather than looking at their own performance and why they're not doing so well, they look for a scapegoat. So, they'll come up with all sorts of conspiracies about, or theories, let's call them theories, about how Jews all get together and run things for their own mutual benefit. But, if you look at what I've seen over my life, is certainly in Britain, and that's certainly true of other groups of people. For example, public school boys, they tend to, the first thing that they ask about is, where did you go to school? And they'll listen to your accent and whatever, and they'll make judgments on you based on those factors. And what they want is to induct drones who are like them into their organisations. You've got that popular turn of phrase, haven't you? Birds of a feather stick together. So this isn't unusual. It happens amongst many communities that they'll just recruit people who have got similar backgrounds to them. But yeah, that's certainly what a cause of anti-Semitism is jealousy, scapegoating, and the Jews have been a target for that. Another one that's fairly similar is amongst private schools, particularly the top public schools. They like things to go their own way, and they don't like outsiders muscling in on their action. So that's why they tend to be anti-Semitic. The last thing that I want to talk about with regard to anti-Semitism is, you could call it the Jeremy Corbyn effect. So Jeremy Corbyn, I'm convinced, was an outsider. He was an old school Marxist. So he may well had a little bit of genuine anti-Semitism in him, in the grounds that he hated free market and private enterprise, and he associated Jews with that. He kind of bought into what Marx was saying. But anyway, I didn't like his politics. I didn't like his economics in particular, because what he wanted to do, no doubt, if he grabbed hold of the levers of power, would be that he'd run some sort of socialist planned economy, which would have been an absolute disaster. And it was quite interesting to see what happened with him. He came from sort of nowhere, from the back benches. And I think the establishment allowed him to get into power just as an experiment. And then I think they were quite surprised about how popular Jeremy Corbyn became. And at that point, they decided to crush him. So initially, they tried to crush him on economic grounds, but, that his Corbynomics, money printing, apart from the fact that that's exactly what they do, there's not a lot of difference these days anyway. And then the thing that really got rid of him, which was what they wanted all along, was the allegation that Jeremy Corbyn was anti-Semitic. That's actually how the establishment managed to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. Did the establishment really care about Jews and anti-Semitism? I would say not really. Did they care about Jeremy Corbyn and the chance that he could win an election and mess up their economic plans? I think they cared a lot more about that than they cared about anti-Semitism. And they just used anti-Semitism as a tool to get rid of him. You could say something similar about Andrew Bridgen. So I'm not even sure what's going on there, but they kicked him out of the Conservative Party by saying that he was anti-Semitic. So that's another reason, I guess, why anti-Semitism features in the news. It's some people actually use it as a tool of control, and that's not good, because for me, as you know, I'm not one of these people that believes that the Holocaust was a hoax. And it's just another example of the government murdering its own people, something that's been all too common in history. So that's all that I want to say about where does anti-Semitism sort of come from. Because I remember, when we went to Israel, I took my family there before all the nonsense started, and my wife was asking me, where does it all come from? And That's where I think it comes from. So if you've got any different ideas about where you think or what you think the origins of anti-Semitism are that I've not covered in this video, please tell me in the comments. So yeah, that's all I want to say today. Absolutely fantastic, beautiful, sunny end of winter day. You can see there's somebody, they've put some cross country skiing tracks down on the beach. Believe it or not, this is a beach. You can see the volleyball court there. Sun's shining. So yeah. Okay, so God bless.